Our great FIFA president, Gianni Infantino. There's nobody like him, actually, very few.
When we met the first time, Mr. President, in 2018, in the summer, after the award of the decision, I promised you we would make a great World Cup. And by all means, this World Cup has exceeded all expectations.
Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. That exchange tells you almost everything about the political dynamic being discussed here. Trump openly acknowledges that flattery works on him, and that makes the praise surrounding Gianni Infantino especially interesting. The bigger question isn't whether Trump likes Infantino. It's whether personal loyalty and political relationships are becoming more important than the traditional institutions those leaders are supposed to represent. And that is where the possibility of Infantino becoming UN Secretary General suddenly becomes a much bigger story. If the United Nations has been repeatedly criticized by the Trump administration, why would putting a Trump-friendly figure at its top suddenly make sense? That's the contradiction at the heart of this discussion, and it's exactly why the relationship between Trump and Infantino is attracting so much attention.
Simon Marks is LBC's Washington correspondent. It just shows, to an extent, Simon, doesn't it, that if someone spends enough time around the president and ingratiates themselves and does the handshake right and tells him how brilliant he is and gives him a peace award, you could do anything you want.
Well, it's funny you say that, Tom, because yesterday the Lebanese president did exactly that in the Oval Office, saying to the President of the United States, I admire you so much and the power that you have and the way in which you administer it. And Donald Trump turned to the cameras and said, I like this guy. He knows exactly how to work me. He can now get anything he wants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this visit for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Meeting such a great president like yourself.
That's a very nice thing. See, he knows how to get to me. He knows. He can have anything. Now he can have anything.
And in the case of Gianni Infantino, and let's be honest, no one, I mean, not even Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, has played Donald Trump more like a violin than Gianni Infantino, and genuflected before him like Gianni Infantino. Now, according to the New York Post, President Trump thinks that Gianni Infantino could succeed Antonio Guterres as UN Secretary General. And what, of course, is so extraordinary about all of this is that up until now, the Trump administration has constantly rubbished the United Nations. I mean, back in January, when the US invaded Venezuela and made off with President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, squirreling them back to New York to face narco-terrorism charges, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked about UN concern over the legality of the operation and said, I don't care what the UN says. Now, suddenly, he sees an opportunity, Trump, to put someone who is clearly a fervent supporter of his and someone who will do his bidding in the Secretary General's office at the UN, and he really thinks that'd be a great idea. By the way, whatever happened to the Board of Peace?
Well, Simon, you've anticipated my next question. All these things seem to be set up by Trump, and the Board of Peace, as I read the other day, seems to have disintegrated a bit, or at least been pared back.
Well, certainly the Board of Peace plan for Gaza has been very much pared back, despite the fact that it had won the backing, not just of our own former Prime Minister Tony Blair, but even former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who wrote an opinion piece in the Financial Times last month that stunned many of her fellow Democrats by saying Donald Trump's plan for Gaza is the only game in town. We need to get behind it. The Board of Peace, of course, was set up by President Trump, and he was open about this, as a possible effort to outpace the United Nations, even to replace it. Now, suddenly, the Board of Peace no longer seems to be doing very much, and President Trump wants to put his own man into the top job at the United Nations, clearly something that's not going to find any purchase with the other 4 members of the Permanent 5 Security Council members that will have considerable sway in that process.
I thought it was interesting when we dipped in yesterday to the meeting with the Lebanese Premier and Donald Trump, that Donald Trump suggested that he would be willing to talk to Hezbollah.
Yeah.
I guess he's kind of willing to talk to anybody who will listen, particularly if they flatter them. Do you think that might bear fruit, might be helpful, might alleviate this situation there?
I do not think you should rule anything out, because Donald Trump, and he will argue, and his supporters will argue, this is one of his stronger points in foreign policy terms, is willing, he says, to talk to anyone. That, of course, has led to meetings with the North Korean strongman Kim Jong-un during his first term in office. He said that under certain circumstances he'd be willing to meet not just with Hezbollah, but with the Iranian leadership, even though he's recently described them as scum and cheats. But he never rules the idea of talking even to your most fervent opponent out.
And all of this, of course, Simon, as US troops very sadly are coming home in body bags.
Yeah, and the president has been at Dover today at the Air Force Base, engaged in the dignified ceremony surrounding the return of the latest 3 US service personnel to be killed in Iran. He has told reporters that they were fighting to stop Iran from ever possessing a nuclear weapon. I have to say that yesterday in the Senate Appropriations Committee, his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth came in for an absolute drubbing over his leadership of this war that increasingly looks to lawmakers as though it's becoming another one of those forever wars that President Trump promised voters he would not lead the United States into if...
The supplemental funding request is not a substitute.
We are against this illegal law. This is against Iranian people, 90 million people. Your hands for blood of 17 Americans and 4,000...
The witness will suspend until order is restored.
The supplemental funding request is not a substitute for the president's full $1.5 trillion base budget request. $1.5 trillion.
Stop bombing our children in Iran and Palestine. This is illegal.
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice.
To ask you about the final, Spain, Argentina. Spain are up there because they've won. You've got Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump kind of photobombing the Spanish team. What do you think of Gianni Infantino? Did you like his trainers?
I wouldn't say I've got any immediate thoughts. To be honest with you, I stayed up for the game so late that I actually missed the trophy lift. So when I was watching things the next day, I couldn't tell you if it was AI or if it was real. But I think we all knew that Donald Trump would probably be handing out the trophy. But look, I was really pleased for Spain. I think they played the tournament in the right way. I think they just went about the business. I don't think they kind of were putting in any kind of tackles that you would deem unacceptable. And I think for young boys, young girls looking up to that team, I thought they were great role models. And I felt like football was the winner with Spain winning.
Finally, then, there's quite the bromance, isn't there, between Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a big fan and vice versa. He wants Infantino to be the next Secretary General of the UN. And he says that Gianni Infantino is respected by everyone around the world. He's got a special ability to bring people together. Would you agree with that when it comes to Gianni Infantino? Is he respected by everyone around the world?
I don't think, again, I'd have any thoughts on it. I think for me, especially this World Cup, I just tuned in as an England fan and just like to watch their progression. So yeah, I tend not to get involved in anything like that. I think for me, it's just about watching the team, supporting them. And it would have been fantastic if we'd been there at the end with that trophy, but we weren't. But the good thing about football is there's another game around the corner, and I do believe England will bring it home.
And then the conversation moves from political relationships to something far more serious: Trump's foreign policy. The promise was to avoid the kind of endless conflict that had defined previous administrations. But according to the discussion, lawmakers are increasingly questioning whether the Iran conflict is beginning to resemble exactly the kind of prolonged war Trump had promised to avoid. That creates a difficult political problem. Talking to opponents can be presented as diplomacy, but military escalation creates an entirely different test for the administration. And that's ultimately the question hanging over this entire exchange. Are these decisions producing a different kind of foreign policy, or simply repeating some of the patterns Trump campaigned against? So what do you make of this exchange? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like. subscribe, and turn on notifications for more political commentary.